welcome to the Moon Baby Magic Podcast, a space for women and women's stories. For the woman just beginning to believe she can actually heal her painful period naturally. For the one in a full-on love affair with aligning her entire life with her cycle. And for every woman in between. This is a platform to remember the wisdom that lives in our wombs so that we may actualize the lives of our dreams. I'm your host, Natalie Elliott, women's health practitioner specializing in traditional Chinese medicine-based hormonal healing. Ready for slow and sacred storytelling and to learn a little something? Let's dive in. Okay, welcome back, women. And yes, we are sitting here after dark with red light glasses and a college alumni. Not hoodie. You don't call it a hoodie when it doesn't have a hood. Sweater? Is it just a sweater? Sweatshirt. Wow, I need to go to bed. So I'll make this brief. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being on the Moon Baby Magic podcast. If you're new here, I love to share women's rites of passage stories and also get into deep dives on the menstrual cycle, healing your hormones, period pain, PMS, and all of that. And today I have an episode with my friend and colleague, Krista, and I'm really excited to bring it to you because Krista brings a unique flavor to this type of work where a lot of her practice is hands-on work. So I'm really excited for you all to hear how Krista got to where she is. It's incredibly fascinating and what she does now. And make sure to listen to the end to hear Krista share about her upcoming offering, her belly tending class. Okay, so what does it actually look like to go from chronically numbed out, medicated, and disconnected to doing the most embodied, soul-level healing work of your life? In this episode, I sit down with Krista, somatic body worker and pelvic care practitioner, who takes us on the full journey from tomboy teen mortified by her first bleed to software engineer in San Francisco on 4 different pharmaceuticals. You'll have to listen to hear what they are. To then solo traveling the world and finding herself through some unconventional means, and eventually now to landing in Colorado doing this very deep tissue grounded work with women. So in this episode we talk about breakfast as a spiritual practice, the hungry ghost energy of seeking without substance, what plant medicine and ayahuasca cracked open for her, and how Krista's entire life has been a journey of learning to actually feel herself, not escape her body as a woman. So you'll hear all of that and more in this episode. I'd love to hear what you think. So as always, please rate and review the show. I know you hear that on every podcast, but it actually does make a difference for these stories getting in front of more women, and it supports Krista and I and our work in the world. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for being here. All links always in the show notes. Let's get to it. Okay, perfect. Hey, Krista, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. As always, like once I start this recording, it's so funny because we've like just been connecting and now we're deciding to record it. Oh yeah, I'm really happy you're here. Krista and I are in Kristen Hauser's womb medicine training together right now, so we've gotten to know each other a little bit through that. And Krista's an incredible body worker in Colorado, so I'm really excited to have her here to share her stories and her wisdom. And yeah, I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself, Krista, and what I really think is interesting for us to know is like where you're at in your cycle, what's your current phase of life, so we can really orient to you because how you show up, we have your overall phase of life, but how you show up depending on where you're at in your cycle is very unique. So I'm curious where you're at there.
Yeah, I am currently bleeding, actually. I'm like
Mm,
4 of my cycle right now, so it's kind of that last trickle for me.
yeah.
It's kind of when my bleed starts to close. Um, but kind of also comes back a little stronger than day 3 was sometimes too. So
Mhm.
I feel like I'm in that space of like new energy coming in and still being in the warm holding of that my blood offers. So it's fun to be here in the energy of being bleeding.
Yeah, totally. And I'm like kind of on the other end of you. I'm not like I'm like 3 days past ovulation. So I definitely feel like I'm getting into the luteal vibes, but there's still like a little bit. It's almost like oscillating. I'm like, oh, an iced coffee and a drive. And then I'm like, oh, I want to go home.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
yeah. But I think being in the bleed time, especially like yeah, kind of coming out of it and having received the medicine of your blood is a really sweet time to be here sharing your story.
Yeah, for sure. This was definitely a cycle that really dropped me into that these last few days was a deep journey into myself in a way that it isn't always, not every time.
Yeah.
But this time, oh right, there's deep medicine in the dropping down into my bleeding days and being with my blood in a really intentional way. And I felt like this past bleed was really a re-anchoring into that for me actually, which felt really good and really needed.
I love that you said that because yeah, I feel that. I think when I first, and maybe you can relate to it this way, when I first started really honoring my blood, like every bleed was so deep and it was like a full ceremony. And then I feel like the past couple years, like it's just not always that deep. But yeah, sometimes you have one and then it reminds you. It's like, oh yeah, this can be really deep.
Yeah, it
Mm.
helps me to remember that like I can have a personality that can really love intensity and can really crave peak experiences. It's something I work with in myself a lot. Is that
Mm.
like sometimes the ceremony is boring.
Mm.
And that gets to be there too. Like not every ceremony is like, oh my God, these realizations and insights, and I feel so connected. Sometimes,
Mm.
oh yeah, like life is ceremony and the day-to-day mundane, and sometimes being in ceremony is just like, okay, I'm here. And
Yeah.
that much is happening, and that's no less sacred than when it feels like everything's happening and all of this wisdom is pouring through, and I feel so connected to myself and to God, and that's just, yeah, not always how it is in reality.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
it's been a lot of my learning to like rest into like not, one is not better than the other.
yeah, it's so true. Yeah, it reminds me of just like the chop wood, carry water thing. It's like sometimes nothing is more sacred than that.
That's definitely been the mantra of my life these past few years. It's continuing to be a really deep medicine for me to accept that more. Like
Mm.
this is what we're doing here. We're chopping wood, we're carrying water, and I'm gonna do it again tomorrow. It's like the
Yeah,
most beautiful, magical thing when I allow it to be.
it is. And it our of course we know that our cycles and our health like really rely on that level of like consistent care, like consistent showing up like over and over again, the same things. I recently had a client say to me, she's like, do you ever get exhausted just like eating every 4 hours every day? And I was like, yeah, I guess it is. It feels like a chore at first, but eventually you just like get used to it. And it's just, yeah, like this is what I do.
I mean, that point is so real for me. There was probably years of my life that I had to work with like that I felt resentful of my hunger. Like,
Mm.
oh my God, are you kidding me? I'm hungry again and I have to feed my body. You have to address this hunger with something, with food. Uh,
Whoa.
for a long time of my life, like that felt like really burdensome. And
Yeah, I
I
hear
resented
you.
my physical form, I think, in that way that like, oh, my body has daily needs that if I don't attend to, do not get attended to.
I know. Oh my gosh. I mean, that even comes back to the chop wood, carry water, and peak
Mhm.
experience thing you were saying. I feel like we can
Mhm.
like project so much out of our bodies, especially as people who have like, and I'm kind of assuming this about you, but people who have been on like a spiritual path in some way or shape or form. And it's like we can just want to bypass all of our biological needs to like ascend and have, like you said, these peak experiences. But yeah, we like eventually we got to ground ourselves back down into the reality of our bodies, which I think is so interesting that you're sharing that's something you used to experience because I like perceive you now and the work you do as like so incredibly grounded.
I think that's why my work is so tactile and so hands-on, is because I have needed that more than anything. And like groundedness is my journey in this life, like learning to really be here and learning to really occupy and take up space in my own body on earth in the physical is so much harder for me naturally than being in the more spiritual, airy realms that
Mm,
for most of my life I really was drawn towards and found myself a lot more comfortable there and a lot more connected there. But it
mm,
left me with feeling like a challenge in my accessing of belonging to Earth, to my
mhm.
humanness, where like it's been a journey for me to accept and love the human expression of my being.
God, that's so real. I feel like so many people can relate to that. I also feel like that's really kind of up in, I guess I can use this term, in the collective. It's like up in the collective. I feel that though. I feel like I'm having a lot of conversations with women in my life about just enjoying being a human and having a human experience so much more and not needing to have this like, yeah, up and out of your body, like spiritual kind of depth all the time.
Yeah, I'm finding it's like so much more enjoyable in the day to day. Like I would have these beautiful experiences in the spiritual circles and ceremonies and
Mm.
things that I loved and I cherished and I'm grateful for, of course. And they really shaped so much of how I see the world and experience myself. But the day to day of my life was a mess. And I didn't enjoy existing in my life and in my body on the regular until I
Mm.
started to embrace more of my humanity and like, oh, right, I get to have fun and play and create a daily life that really suits me and supports me and nourishes me. And like
Yeah.
nourishes me being like the key part. Oh, I wasn't fed enough to be here.
Whoa, I wasn't fed enough to be here. Oh my God, that's so real.
It was a hard pill to swallow. Like a hard meal to eat again and again and again.
It's kind of like when we start working with a client and they have to kind of like force themselves to eat before they like have hunger cues. You're like, this is good for me. I have to do it.
Totally. And it's brought me to like what I say now to so many of my clients, which is like breakfast as a spiritual path. And that's been my
Yeah.
own needing to reframe of like, I think you share this of I used to have these hours of morning practice and I would get up really early and I would make cacao and sit and meditate and journal and do yoga and breath work and, free form feminine embodiment movement, etc for like sometimes 5 hours in the morning, even, and sometimes less. But I was really, and then like breakfast at noon and be like, I wonder why I don't feel great.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's so real. And I also, again, I feel like so many women can relate to that because we did kind of grow up or like come into our adult womanhood in this era of that, depending on where you live. I think it depending on where you live. But definitely like I was living in like the LA area, and so that was very real for me too, that like my morning practice it was cacao or juice and yoga and meditation and journaling and the whole thing. And then yeah, no wonder. And also I was vegan. And so it's like yeah, we were all vegan. And so it's like no wonder I had such bad anxiety. But then I thought the anxiety, you almost can confuse the anxiety for like a spiritual thing like Kundalini energy or something like that. And you're like, oh, I'm feeling all this energy. And it's like, no, babe, actually, you need to eat. Your body's going nuts.
And I thought like, oh, the more I feel this anxiety, that means I need more practice. I
Yeah.
should probably meditate more to alleviate this anxious feeling inside of myself. When in reality, it was like, no, girl, you need a steak.
Yeah.
Like so badly. Like get a nice roast in the slow cooker and dare I
Yeah.
say, watch your problems disappear.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
like
yeah.
breakfast has been a more challenging practice for me to commit to in some ways than all of that was. Like that was
Yeah.
it was sexier, it was
Oh,
like
yeah.
it feels so in the flow and I'm connected and I'm doing the right things and breakfast was boring. And I'm
Yeah.
not that hungry and I don't really know what to make and this is kind of boring and I don't really feel that good after I eat. So I don't really want to eat because then I feel a little
Mm,
bloated and uncomfortable and
mm,
tired. And so it was hard to commit to. I'm like,
yeah.
that's like what really moved things for me when I started to commit to that every day. I started
Mm,
to really feel different in my like actual felt body. I started to
yeah.
actually keep weight on for the first time in my life.
Mm.
I was like one of those little twigs, like could blow away in the wind, couldn't hold a pound. Like, and no wonder that I was like anxious and
Yeah.
literally moving around the world, like floating through life. Like I
Yeah.
didn't have substance to my being that anchored me here.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's so real. I think the breakfast as a spiritual practice thing is really deep. Yeah, and it is hard at first. I will say that. Like for anyone listening who's like, I don't know, it is hard at first. It takes some getting used to. But for me, the biggest thing was noticing the sense of just like stability and structure I felt in my body. Like you said, like having the substance to really be here actually feels really good.
So good. Like so unbelievably good.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's something that, yeah, is just such an important thing for us to talk about as women. And you can do the spiritual practices after you eat something. You know what I mean? Like if you really want to, like, do that.
Yeah, and I find from that place, like it's been more clear what are the practices that actually serve me than rather than
Mm,
what am I doing because I think I'm supposed to, or I think it
so true.
will get me where I want to go, which is
Yeah.
really just this place that, quite honestly, I was running away from my reality and not
Mm,
really able to sit in comfortability with like who I was and where I was at.
yeah.
Oh, I need something to be different, therefore I will meditate my way there.
Mm,
It was like a really unsettled place in myself that was like just seeking and seeking and seeking. If I do this enough, something will change and I'll
wow.
love myself more.
Yeah, it's so real. I was on Instagram earlier today and one of my friends just posted something that said like, here's your reminder to stop trying to fix yourself and love yourself instead. And where
Mhm.
she kind of went into this, what you're saying, that it can be so easy in this world of trying to be a conscious human and to do all this personal development work to always be trying to fix some sort of perceived brokenness inside you. But like eating breakfast is almost an eating in general is a reclamation of like, yeah, I deserve nourishment like as I am right now. I don't need to like do anything to deserve that. I don't need to put it off and like do something to my mind first to be worthy of this. And I think it's worth tuning in for people listening to be like, yeah, like what is that reasoning behind waiting so long to nourish yourself? Like usually there is an element of feeling like you have something to fix.
Yeah, and it makes me think of like I feel like underneath it, it's coming from a place of craving spiritual nourishment. And we're like, oh, I'm so hungry to feel connected to something, to feel some sense of meaning for my life. And like I know
Mm,
myself and I can feel God's presence and whatever God means to you. And so for me, it was like this really deep spiritual hunger that I was craving, but I didn't have the physical nourishment to be able to receive it.
mm,
Like the hungry ghost for
a
me.
hungry
Like it,
ghost.
it was insatiable.
Yeah.
And it was in like really coming back to the physical nourishment piece that had me realize like I can't bypass my body here. Even if
Mm,
I didn't think I was, I was doing quote unquote body-based practices and
mm,
things, but I was still not meeting my like physiological metabolic self in a
yeah.
way that, yeah, it was just leaving me perpetually starving.
Oh my gosh. Wow, I love how you just said that. It is that hungry ghost energy, which is
hmm
so common in our early maiden years. Like we're just seeking, 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 but there's no substance for it to stick.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, I love that girl.
Oh
She was so
yeah.
precious and like was so willing to do something different. I mean,
Yeah.
I have these memories of being at my parents' house during COVID, just back from yoga teacher training and in my full Kundalini whites and head wrap and like chanting like my Ong Namo Sat Nams in my
That's so cute.
womanhood bedroom while my like really normie family is like eating dinner. And I'm like, actually, I'm on a kitchery cleanse. And I'm like, oh God, yeah, like I was just really willing to be weird and go against the grain and I really feel so proud of how willing I was to do all of that and like leave the life that I had been living that was so different from
Mhm.
what I've moved into and the way I live now. I mean, that took so much courage. And so I'm like, yeah, I wasn't necessarily doing the right things when I was 25, but I was doing something and I was doing my best.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so beautiful to honor that girl, I've been thinking about that a lot for myself lately too, is like honoring the girl who just was like so courageous and like you said, like so willing to do something different. I feel
Mhm.
like there's a lot there for us to get into, and so I'm like kind of eager to get into some of your like earlier maidenhood stories. And what I really love to do on the podcast is to hear first bleed stories. So I'm curious, like, because we talk about this blood is a ceremony, and it quite literally is us anchoring into our female bodies. And I think there's so many times where the imprints of that do subtly show up in like later parts of our life too. So, anyways, I'm curious, all that being said, do you remember your first bleed? Like, what was it like for you if you do?
Yeah, I was 14. I
Mm.
was one of the last, I think, of girls my age to get my bleed, and I was horrified by its arrival. I have two older brothers, and I grew up a really extreme tomboy, like really, like I dressed like a boy and really just like wanted to be a boy most of my childhood, honestly, and have a really like type A do it all mom who doesn't really exude with that like motherly feminine archetype. So I wasn't really
Mm.
familiar with feminine energy growing up, and I knew what my bleed was. Like I knew to expect it to come, but when it came, I was 14. I was at home. It was late at night. I think I was getting ready for bed, and I just found a little bit of blood in my underwear. And I remember running back to my bedroom and crawling into bed, completely burying myself under the covers. And then when my mom came in, I think I called her into my room and I said in almost like one word, like, I think I got my period. Didn't take a
Oh.
breath, like barely above a whisper. And she's just like, all right, here's where the pads are. That was complete. That was the conversation
That was it.
and scene. And at
Oh,
that time, I was
wow.
like, thank God she didn't try to say more to me.
Yeah, you
I
didn't
was like
want
really, really mortified. I don't remember my experience of like how long did it last? Was there pain? The
it. Yeah.
rest of that is like complete blur. I think I pretty immediately dissociated from the fact that
Mm.
it even happened, to be honest. It's like, this is probably the most mortifying thing that could have ever happened to me.
I get so like, I get very curious because I have so many women tell me about their first bleeds on this podcast. And I have this curiosity, and I don't really think there's an answer other than the culture. But I'm like, where do we pick up that shame and embarrassment so quickly? Like, is that really like, is it just that embedded into the culture? Like, I don't know.
That's what I question too, and where I come back to of like, no one told me in direct words like this is shameful, but
Yeah.
I never like no one spoke about it at all, really. Like even my friends who had gotten their bleeds, like we didn't talk about it.
And maybe that's why. Maybe it's
Yeah.
because there's no context.
And I didn't know anything about that my mom's experience with that. I never saw my mom like changing a pad or a tampon or like even really knew that she bled, other
Yeah.
than the fact that like I could intellectually deduce that by the fact that I existed. Like I wasn't going there, you know? It was
Yeah.
so ingrained in me from a really young age that being a woman was wrong and shameful. I remember when
Hmm.
I got body hair, like leg hair and breasts, and oh my gosh, God forbid the pubic hair. I was just mortified to the bone.
Wow.
The shame was really deep in me really young in a way that I've really like questioned of like I couldn't look at my own naked body as my body began to develop for years. It was
Wow.
really ingrained in me of like I must cover up. I grew my hair long to cover my breasts. I was really, really shameful of existing outwardly as a woman in a way that anyone could witness and see. It's like
Hmm.
cover it up.
Where do you think that came from?
I think to some extent from really not having experienced something else within womanhood and femininity. I didn't have any role models of a woman who was existing in a way that was in touch with herself and in touch with her curves and her blood. And I grew up in Northern Virginia, which is like a very fast-paced academic environment. And from a really young age, my self-worth was really tied up into my academic success and it being like this very masculine orientation of like, you study really hard, you do really well in school, you go to these really advanced, even like high schools and science and tech and this like really, yeah, just DC suburbs type world.
Wow.
Like it was really specific. And so it was like anything that would require me to slow down or connect with myself, that wasn't going to be successful.
Mm.
And I so deeply wanted to be good, wanted to just be like, I'm doing the right thing. No one was, again, externally telling me this. The undercurrent of the culture was so loud, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of that shame that comes in for the bleed. It is that like undercurrent of the culture, not
Hmm.
having a space to just like come into your womanhood in the way you might have liked to.
Yeah, like the women who were seemed like really like one to aspire after were like wearing like corporate business suits and
Yeah.
being really successful in a corporate linear like political kind of way.
Yeah. I mean, I
And so
think
it's like
also,
that's how you do to be good.
yeah,
That's the path.
I know. I think it also is that like whatever wave of feminism, I'm not familiar with the numbers of the waves, but one of the waves is like, go climb the corporate ladder, you know?
Mhm.
And that's a way. That's like a way to feel fulfilled in your life. But it is also a way, like you said, that often kind of bypasses female physiology. And yeah, it's like really interesting to grow up as a girl in that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me even think of my mom when she was pregnant with me. I'm the third. I have two older brothers. I'm the last baby. And she found out she was pregnant and she was working a really corporate job in DC in the business world and really successful in that way. And she had just had two pregnancies in the last 3 years. So she
Mm,
didn't tell her work that she was pregnant because she knew it wouldn't go well. And she hid her pregnancy and kept working in this like really intense corporate environment, knowing that when she shared with her work that she was pregnant, that she would likely be transitioning in some capacity.
whoa.
Um, and so just thinking of the environment that my mother was in and that I was in while growing in her womb, which was one of like, be a really good man.
Mm,
And she was really successful in that way, but it didn't allow her to be soft and home with her children in any way. We didn't have that kind of environment in what we grew up in. And I've thought a lot about what imprint that had on me while I was in the womb and the way that I was shaped by no like fault to my mother at that time, just like what was happening in society in that moment, in 1994 when she was pregnant with me.
whoa.
And yeah, really just thought a lot about the ways that what our mothers are feeling and thinking and experiencing and the ways they're being treated and the way their pregnancy is being approached internally and externally while we're in the womb shapes the way that we move through the world and the way that we enter the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it is really relevant. And I mean, there is that understanding that of course we're being impacted on even a cellular level, like when our mothers have us in their wombs. And so it's interesting that question of like, yeah, where does that come from? It's like, wow, like that was just constantly that sort of like fear and that hiding was like being sort of embedded into your cells as you were growing in your mother's womb. And like you said, it's not to blame or shame anyone. It's just like that was her reality.
Yeah, but like that, it's such a direct parallel now that I say it of like when I
Yeah.
experienced in my first bleed of like I never want someone to see like visualize
Yeah.
me in my womanhood and where my mother had that experience of like, oh, I don't want to be seen in my womanhood as I'm growing a child in my body.
Mm.
Same narrative. Never thought about it that way before.
I know. I feel like people come on this show and they're like, whoa, those connections.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating. That's what I mean when I say like the first bleed, like it's just connected to so many other parts of our
Mm.
life. I'm curious, like what, you said you don't remember too much about like the physical experience of it, but what do you remember about like your teen kind of cycling years? Like, I think you told me you got on birth control,
Yeah.
or like what kind of comes next in the story?
Yeah. I remember probably my second ever bleed was when my mom decided I was going to use tampons.
Oh, wow, really?
She just sent me into the bathroom with a box of tampons and said, figure it out, basically.
Oh God, the
Which I was
tampon.
really, again, quite mortified by. And yeah, I remember just feeling, again, like shame in those early bleeding years of I have memories of like throwing away pads or tampons in the trash, and my dog would fish them out and like carry them around the house because dogs just love that shit.
Dogs love menstrual blood.
They love it. Ugh. And then I would be like, oh my God. Like, then my dad and my brothers would know. And I just remember feeling, like, again, like, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to me. Like the true drama of a 14, 15-year-old.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Without a doubt, worst thing that could ever happen to me. Yeah,
Oh
I
wow.
remember I didn't have that many cycles before I got on birth control. I remember when I was a junior in high school, I lost my cycle for 9 months. So I
Wow.
couldn't have had that many cycles before that, like probably
Was
less than
that was you told me you were really like thin. Was it like were
really
you not
thin.
nourishing well? Was that what was going on?
I wasn't nourishing well at
Yeah.
all for sure. And I was playing sports. I
Mm,
ran cross country and I played soccer.
yeah.
And I was in a really intense academic high school. I went to this really competitive magnet school for science and technology,
Oh
and
wow.
junior year is the crunch year of like it's when everyone takes this really crazy physics class, and it's just known to be the like the hard it's the hardest year of education I've had in my life. College was easier.
I felt like that about my junior year of high school too. Because I don't know, I
Mhm.
actually went to high school like near Boston and I went to like a pretty academic school as well. And I think back on that and I'm like, why were we putting so much strain and pressure on 17-year-olds? Like that is nuts.
My high school was so intense. It's like or it was at the time, it was the number one public high school in the country.
Whoa.
And parents would move from other countries to to like my area in Northern Virginia to have their unborn children apply to go to this high school. It was application only. It
Whoa.
was cutthroat to get into this school and like really prestigious to be going to this school. And so even just like I remember from like being like maybe 11 years old, I started doing like high school prep stuff and like taking certain classes, like certain extracurriculars, and like working with a tutor around like my essays for my high school application. Like I was really, really stressed in the academic world and putting a lot of pressure on myself to succeed in that way. And so junior year was like the height of that, of where, I was in this really prestigious school where I started to also be like not succeeding as well as like in middle school when I was kind of the top of my class. Now, not the
Mhm.
case. And
Wow.
so I
Yeah, I
lost my
mean,
sleep for that whole year.
no wonder you were under so much stress.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there, like 16, 17. I've never kissed a boy. I'm like, am I pregnant? The
Oh,
thoughts
the
that
lack of
run through our head.
education.
And I like, of course, like knew that wasn't true, but I was just like, I'm so confused. Like, I don't understand
Yeah.
what it means to be a cyclical woman at all,
Yeah, well, no
especially
one
losing my
tells.
cycle for so long and really having no one to talk to about it. I don't think anyone knew. I don't think even my closest friends knew.
Wow.
My mom definitely didn't know.
Well, it's just crazy because like it's not viewed as a barometer of health. Like now I think we're finally getting around to that. Like calling the menstrual cycle a vital sign, which like of course it has literally always been the like most primary vital sign for women.
Mhm.
But yeah, recognizing that having like most people I think at that age would just be like, cool, I don't get my period. I even met someone when I was like backpacking last summer in South America. She was in her 20s and she was like, "Oh yeah, thank God I haven't gotten my period in like 2 years." And I'm just like, "Girl, that's not good." But we
Ah,
don't, you don't know until you do. And of course, it makes sense now, probably for you looking back, the strain you were under, that was suppressing your hormonal function and you weren't ovulating, therefore not bleeding.
totally. I mean, none of that was happening. I wasn't eating well. I wasn't sleeping well. None of it. It was like, of course, my hormones are a disaster right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually why. I ended up getting on birth control is I had
Okay.
gnarly acne for a couple years at that point already that was just
Mm,
really taking like an emotional toll.
yeah.
My mom, I think, felt like really like concerned about it,
About your acne.
about my acne.
Yeah.
Like she just it's hard socially on a girl, you know. It
Yes.
was bad.
Yeah.
And I had been going to a dermatologist for probably since I was like 14. And they put me on all of I wish I remember the names of anything from that time, but I don't. But I had tried pretty much every acne medication that they prescribed at those times, other than Accutane, and
Yeah.
none of it worked. Like,
Whoa.
if anything, just made it worse. There was sometimes I remember I took this one acne medication that made my entire skin like bright red and burn. And just like it was just like burning skin, especially when I would sweat. And I was an athlete at the time, and so
Oh
I
my
would
God.
sweat in sports, and then my skin would be on fire, and I would be a bright red tomato, and like it was so bad that sometimes I would cry, and
Oh, babe.
but I was just like kept doing it.
Your poor liver needed support and no one told you.
That's her soul. Yeah, so I ended up my dermatologist prescribed me birth control at that time.
Yeah.
After we had tried everything else other than the Accutane, thank God they never tried that for me because I would have taken it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I had Desiree, who you know, on my podcast a
Mhm.
few weeks ago, and she took Accutane when she was a teen.
Yeah, I mean, I knew so many other people who did. It was really popular
Yeah.
at that moment.
Yeah.
Accutane had a major moment then. And I'm
Oh,
really
wow.
grateful that that was not my experience, but was birth control a better option? I don't know. And so
What?
then I got on the pill, and I was on
Okay.
the pill for about 4 years.
Hmm.
I think from that point, and my cycles hadn't regulated at that time before I got on
Oh,
the pill, so I didn't know what was normal.
yeah.
And I like was so disconnected from my bleeds and then didn't bleed for 9 months that I really didn't know what my cycle was before getting on the pill.
Um,
And on the pill I bled heavily for 7 full days and had pretty bad cramps for all 4 years.
whoa.
And I didn't question it a single time.
Wow.
I was just like, oh,
That-
this kind of sucks.
That's your liver again, the like bleeding for that long.
I just thought this is what the pill is. Like
Whoa.
this is what cycles are because I didn't know any better.
No one told you. No one talked about how much they were bleeding. No one talks about that to this day. Like when I try to ask my clients, and I'm sure you have a similar thing,
Mhm.
they're like, oh yeah, like how much are you bleeding? They're like, I don't know, it's normal. And I'm like, no, 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 we actually need to
What's
talk
normal
about it
mean?
because you might not have the same normal as me. Someone's bleeding for a day and a half and they think that's normal. Someone else is bleeding for 7 days and they think that's normal.
And I had no idea what my unique body's normal was either, since
Yeah.
I didn't have an experience really prior of knowing myself. So it just made
Yeah.
me really rest into like, this is what it is. And I was just like, this is what we're doing. And hot take, my acne did not get better, but I stayed on. Because then it was just like, oh, this is here. Then I like started to age. I started to get more interested and like, okay, maybe one day I'll have sex. And at that time, there was such a cultural rhetoric of, I have to be on birth control before I ever have sex. Like,
Yeah.
that wasn't even in my consideration to not.
Yeah.
So I was like, great, I'm just glad I've already gotten this taken care of. That's what I was thinking to myself.
Mm.
I'll be set for the future for when that's relevant for me,
Whoa.
which is really heartbreaking to
It
think about
is.
now that like I was just so surrendered to this narrative that in no way supported me.
But you
And
don't know any better. Like you don't know there's another option unless someone tells you.
yeah.
So you were on it for 4 years. So that brought you into college.
Yeah, that brought me into college. And then it was probably about like maybe my junior or senior year of college that I got on an IUD. I got the
Mhm.
hormonal IUD, the Skyla 3 year. It's like a little smaller and a little less hormones than the Mirena.
Okay.
And I had that. I had the full 3 year cycle of the first one, and then I got another one when that expired. And so I had it for 4 years total. And both times getting it in and out was like hell on earth.
How did you decide to do that instead of the pill? Like you just wanted more convenience?
I wanted more convenience. I was starting to get not very good at taking it at the same time every day.
Oh yeah.
And I was having sex at that time.
Yeah.
And so I was starting to get nervous around, I was really hyper vigilant around pregnancy prevention when I was young. Bless her, love her.
I mean, yeah, we love that. That's
Yeah.
great.
Like, most of my friends weren't
Wow.
in that same way. I was really like, I am not getting pregnant, so help me God. I will do anything and everything to ensure that. And so that was why I wanted the IUD. In my
Okay.
mind, it was like, I will not get pregnant. This will not happen. I will control this in every way I can.
It's so interesting because, of course, you don't want to get pregnant as a teen, but it's interesting because, like you said, I feel like a lot of people don't see that risk as much. I wonder where that came from in you, like the like being
Yeah,
very risk aware.
I wonder too. I remember conversations I would have because by college we started to be a lot more open in my friend groups around things like sex and still
Yeah.
not periods, actually, really just sex.
Yeah.
Curious that periods were more taboo.
I know.
Like,
I think I
what?
asked that question on Instagram once. I was like, what's more taboo, menstrual blood or sex? And I think it's menstrual blood for sure.
I think it is too, which is really curious as
It
well
is
to me.
curious.
Yeah. So it was like, I remember my friends being kind of like chill about it, of not really caring that much about condoms, like not being that consistent around birth control things.
Hmm.
And I was not that way at all. I was really a stickler.
Well, you were on this like rigorous academic path and like had probably this like vision for your future. So maybe that's part of it.
Yeah. I feel like it might have been, but when I tune in, I'm honestly like, I think it was just this part of me that was terrified of my body.
Whoa.
To get pregnant, like, what?
Yeah.
I in no way was mature enough for that. Like, and again, rightfully so, I genuinely wasn't. But there was
Yeah.
like a deeper level of something else happening for me there, of just like really deep fear of my own system.
Mm,
Like I didn't know myself. I didn't want to know myself. I wanted to control my body at that point, and to control my ability to not get pregnant felt really important.
yeah.
Which is, yeah,
Wow.
again, interesting. And
Like
so yeah,
trying to
after
sort
that
of,
idea, I was just like, this is easy. I won't have to
yeah.
think about it. It feels a lot safer. I
Yeah.
felt really safe with the IUD.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like looking at your body as something to manage versus like something to be in a relationship with is like what I'm hearing. Like,
Completely.
let me risk manage this female body of mine because I don't know what the fuck it's doing.
Yeah. And then I like to make me not have to think about it.
Yeah. So what was your experience on the IUD like?
I didn't bleed the whole time almost. I think I
Whoa.
started to have some spot bleeds during year 4.
Okay,
Um,
did you like worry about that? Like, were you at all in your mind like something isn't right, or were you just like, whatever, this
I
is
mean,
what it
doctors
is?
say it's common to not bleed on the IUD.
Yeah.
And so I was like coming in with the knowing of like that might happen. At the time, my bleeds on birth control on the pill were horrible. And so it felt like a gift. I was like,
Mhm.
this is a dream come true. I never have to worry. I don't have to think about this. I can have sex whenever I want. I can never have to worry about if I'm bleeding, and the inconvenience of that in my life. Was 0% concerned, and honestly loved it at the time.
Yeah.
It felt like really great. And like I know so many women who throughout their experience with IUDs were like, oh, I didn't feel like myself, this or that. Like I didn't have a hard experience.
Really?
For me to go off was more challenging because I felt so easeful with it.
So how did you decide to go off of it?
I went off by this time I was majorly shifting my life already.
Okay, yeah. What was the catalyst for that? I want to hear more about that. I feel like everyone I have on this podcast, it's like all like very like conscious and like badass women. And I'm like, okay, like what was the shift? What was the catalyst? So I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I think you also shared this in your story of yoga was really my gateway drug.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I was.
Yes. Yeah, I found yoga when I was a senior in college, and by this point, I was still drinking a lot and partying, but I was starting to get more like isolated and realizing like I'm not I'm unhappy. I think I had been unhappy for a long time, but I was able to mask it enough with honestly a lot of meaningless drinking and partying and relationships with men that I had no real interest in, and that
Mhm.
fed me enough to kind of keep it quiet until it didn't. And
Yeah.
senior year of college, I was like, oh shit, I think I'm depressed. And it
Mm.
kind of hit me for the first time in a conscious way. And
Whoa.
I was not very into working out at this time, and my friend dragged me to a hot yoga class, and I don't think I even really knew what yoga was. It's hard to describe how much not in this world we're in today I was in at that time. I was an academic girl.
Yeah.
Like I was like a really like East Coast girl, and
That's so hard to imagine.
yeah, I had a real pivot. And so she took me to this hot yoga class at this little studio in our college town. I went to this like small, like I was this school in this small town in Southwest Virginia.
Hmm.
And and I went to this hot yoga class and was like, what just happened to me? I'm obsessed.
Wow. What
Which
did you like
took
about
everyone by storm. Like my friends, what do you mean you like yoga?
it?
Like it was like the biggest
What like
contrary to my being.
what was it about the yoga? Like it just felt good in your body? Like what maybe yeah,
No
what
idea.
yeah.
At the time, like I was so disconnected from myself that when I look back, I'm like, I don't know what it was, but I started going maybe first, like I started going like 3 times a week. And then by the end of senior year, I think I was going like 5 times a week.
Wow.
Like something clicked and I'm like, I need this, like I need air. But I was
Whoa.
still drinking a lot, still doing a lot of other like things that I was like, ugh, not proud of and not enjoying. But it was kind of like an anchor. And I started to shift in that moment during that year of like, I am being depleted by the way I'm living my life. It became
Hmm.
clear. Like the way, like the culture of my school was really party oriented,
Yeah.
the social scene, and I've never fit in socially that easily in those environments. And I started to just stop ignoring the truth of that at that time. And that's where I
Mm.
think yoga helped of like it was in some way forcing me to feel myself. And I think that it
Yeah.
was hot and like active was really helpful for me at that time because I was still like an athlete at heart. Of like I
Yeah.
liked to work hard. I liked to feel myself and I was like
Yeah.
studying really hard. I was a really intense girl.
Yeah.
So
Intense.
glad that's changed, haha. But yeah, it was like the intensity of like the heat and the
Yeah,
movement and
totally.
it being really physically strenuous really helped because my mind couldn't like get in the way too much.
Yeah. Whoa. So, yeah, I guess it probably opened up. I mean, I know for me, yoga like opened up both a connection to my body. I feel like that actually came later though. Like the first thing was like the spiritual connection. So yeah, I'm curious, like was getting off the IUD partly because of that moment?
Yeah, so it kind of came in the next few years. So after I graduated college, I moved to San Francisco
Mm,
and I was working a corporate job and then I was a software engineer at a tech startup.
wow. We've all had so many lives.
Totally. Yeah, I had my first year out there, I was a tech consultant for a major consulting firm doing data analytics. And then I worked for a tech startup doing software engineering. And so I was out there for about 2 years. And during that time, I was just like, I went really, really down in my mental health in a pretty severe way. I got on a lot of medication. And
Wow.
um, and my yoga practice was pretty much the only thing keeping me afloat. So I found a
Wow.
studio in San Francisco and I became a devotee of the practice in a way beyond like anything I had ever known or understood before. And it was, as you said, that spiritual connection that started to really open in me. And
Mm,
I started to just become ravenous for spiritual growth and understanding and knowledge. And
wow.
I followed my yoga teacher to Mexico. He moved to
Mm,
Mexico and did a retreat there. And I was like in love with this man. Oh my God. His name was Mario. He was so sexy and he was from Spain and had this amazing accent. And like, I was just like, I'll follow you to the ends of the earth, Mario. And so I followed him to Mexico for this yoga retreat while I was still living out there. And that introduced me to like tantra and cacao. I heard of cacao for the first time on that retreat. And
Cacao.
I also on that retreat ended up like doing combo and smoking DMT. And
Whoa.
I just was like, okay, I'm here, I'm open. They're
You
offering
were
me everything.
open.
So I was just in a moment of openness and I
Wow.
trusted him and I trusted the yoga practice
Yeah.
and I was just I felt in that retreat like, oh, when I'm living in an environment where like we were just on the beach every day,
Mm.
surrounded with just like beautiful food, beautiful people, beautiful practices, and in a lot of like connective conversation and things to facilitate, yeah, deeper human connection. And 90% of the problems that were honestly making me feel pretty suicidal back home felt completely alleviated.
Wow.
And that was a really powerful moment for me where I realized my environment is radically impacting the state of my being. And so during that retreat, I also, to do the combo, they required, and I didn't even know what that was at the time. I had never heard of it. Like, what do
You're
you
like,
mean it's
I'm gonna try
you're
it.
gonna burn me? Cool. Sign me up. I was so innocent. I was such a baby. So they
How
required me
old were
to get
you at
off
this
of
point?
medication. I was 24, 23,
Okay.
24.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was required to get off all my medication for 3 days
Whoa.
before and after, which I did without consulting my psychiatrist. And, because he had me on like anti-anxiety, antidepressants, Adderall, and Ambien. So
Oh
I was
my
being
God.
regulated in my every waking and non-waking state. My every function of my body was being regulated and controlled by a medication at that time.
That is okay. That is so crazy to me because I mean, of course it is to you too, and probably anyone listening. It's like that's wild. But it's like you clearly were living a life that didn't support you. And
Yeah.
like, when was anyone gonna tell you that?
Mhm. And the crazy part was how much I wanted it at that time. I was so
Mm,
unhappy that I went to the psychiatrist, like, please, dear God, medicate me. I am unwell. Like, I
mm,
was so desperate to put my power into anything that would make me feel better. And at that time, I'm like, yeah, for sure, give me medication because I don't want to be here. It was like
mm,
really extreme. And so, like, to feel the place where it wasn't just like, oh, they medicated me, it was where like I actually like begged for it.
mm.
To be like, oh, that's the place that I was at. That's the consciousness that I was operating in. And this is like simultaneous to having like a pretty committed yoga practice and being in all
Wow.
of that in the same time. So it was like I was really walking kind of like two parallel paths still at that time. I hadn't yet really made the deeper shifts that were clearly being asked of me.
Yeah.
I was still like working a 9 to 5 and like at a computer all day and writing code and like hated it.
Wow.
Hated
Yeah, like it just reminds me too, like before we were saying like managing your body instead of being in relationship with it, and it's almost what this feels like is trying to manage your life instead of like actually living it.
Exactly.
And it sounds like this retreat definitely opened up a lot for you.
It opened up so much of just, I think that was the first moment that I actually felt in my body that something else is possible.
Whoa.
And I needed that feeling
Yeah.
of like I'm having a genuinely different experience of myself and of life than 'cause I really didn't know anything else to be possible. I didn't see anyone else living in a different way. I didn't know any other versions of success. I had no role models for that. And so to like yeah, have a genuine embodied experience of it gets to be good felt radical.
So what happened after the retreat? Like what did you do with that new information?
Yeah, so I got home. That was like January, I remember. And I remember I made the decision the moment I got back that I was going to quit my job at my birthday, which is in September.
Whoa.
I had an 8 month plan to quit
Yeah.
that I held to the whole time. I did quit in
Wow.
September. The day before my 25th birthday, I quit my job.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that you were also like stable about it. You didn't just like spontaneously quit. You like made a plan.
Yeah, I made a plan. I started saving aggressively because I
Yeah.
was making a shit ton of money at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, software pays well.
Yeah.
Silicon Valley pays well. It also costs a lot, living costs a lot.
Yeah, of course, that
So
too.
I basically like started saving and I wasn't doing anything but spending money on like I was going to yoga probably twice a day at that point.
Wow.
Yeah, and then from that, plant medicine came in with a
Mm.
bang. Once I got back from that retreat, my coworker at my software job saw my scars on my arm, and she's like, "We should get lunch." Like, cool, we don't get lunch. Like, we're not friends. And she tells me all about her ayahuasca experiences with this couple in Santa Cruz, which is just a couple hours away, and
Whoa.
puts me in contact with them. And I ended up signing up for their weekend 3-day ayahuasca retreat in June of that year. So I guess, yeah, 5 months after I had gotten back from Mexico.
Yeah.
And that experience restructured me in
Yeah.
like complete before and after. I was shattered to like the illusion
Mm.
of life and myself, and everything that I had known literally crumbled in the moment. It's like the very stereotypical experience of, and it's drastic and life changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my experience. And so when I came home from that, I started to get really specific on I had received a lot of clarity from that weekend on what my plan to quit would look like. Prior, I had
Mm.
all of these ideas of like maybe I'll move to Oregon and be kind of like a outdoorsy girl and like work at a coffee shop. And at that time I was like, I mean, and still like really connected to nature, really into like hiking and being outside. And so I was kind of like, maybe I'll lean more into that lifestyle and see what happens. But then it became clear like that's not my path, that's not the way. And I got really clear guidance to do this really specific yoga teacher training in Mexico in October and
Mm.
to move back to my parents' house in the meantime. We
Wow.
had two cats, so I made that plan and I solidified it all and I quit my job and I left my life in San Francisco and I moved my cats to my parents' house and I went to Mexico, studied yoga, and I was back and forth at that yoga place for about 6 months.
Whoa.
And that was when the clarity really, I'd say it dropped in to get my IUD out around the time of that
Mm.
ayahuasca retreat. There
Wow.
was a woman who led that with her husband, and she really changed things for me. She was the first woman I met who was embodied in her womb and
Mm.
into it and singing from it. And song came through for me in a way that like really rocked my core. Like the power of music and voice and the voice
Yeah.
of the womb. And
How did that drop in for you? Like, how did you recognize that as like the power of the womb?
it's a really good question. My experience in that ceremony brought me into that awareness in a way that I still don't have conscious comprehension of.
Yeah.
Like at the time, I didn't have even the language of masculine and feminine in my vocabulary. I don't think
Yeah.
I'd ever heard those words in my life. And I came out of that retreat speaking about feminine energy. And I started
Wow.
dressing differently. I started feeling my womb. I had a really intense purge experience of all of my internalized misogyny
Whoa.
in that weekend and realizing like, oh, I hate women. And it shattered me.
Mm.
No, I was so modern feminist, like liberal feminist going in, like very women's empowerment. I can do whatever I want. I can sleep with whoever I want. Like really just out that way. And,
Wow.
and that experience just showed me, oh, I hate women at my core.
Ugh.
And I would spend then the next years having to reprogram that narrative in my system. So it was like the womb just became something I realized like I've avoided my own existence as a woman and like not just avoided it, but like loathed it my
Mm.
entire life subconsciously
Mm.
in the lens of feminism.
It's so crazy. I mean, it's such a like mental gymnastics thing.
It is. And like I didn't understand it at the time. That's why I was so rattled by that experience. Like I didn't have any of the language for these things that we're talking about right now. I didn't
Yeah.
have these like mentors and like examples of people doing these other things.
Well,
So
it's like, what it feels like when I ask you that question and you're like, I don't know how it dropped in. It's like yeah, it just stripped away what wasn't true. And like all you were left with was like, yeah, this is what I came into this life with, my womb, my body, my blood, my like being female.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I've rejected the most inherent part of who I
Yeah.
am my entire life.
Whoa.
Because I mean, if I wish that I had pictures available of like the way that I was dressing then and things like, oh, wow, like I was really wanting to just in every way be a really good man.
Yeah.
Was dressing like pretty masculine. I was like even like kind of flirting with the ideas of like, am I straight? I don't know. Like, do I like women? Like, I was just like, I don't know. Who am I? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't connected or anchored in anything that showed me who I was.
Mm.
You know, at the time I still had an IUD and everything when all of this was happening. And so I didn't even yet have the ability to drop into that deeper level. But when I
Totally.
got home from that experience, I knew this IUD has to come out. But I wasn't ready. I was like
Why?
really, really scared because partially because it was such an easy time for me to have it. And
Yeah.
my last memory of bleeding was when I was on the pill.
Right. And it was
I bled
not
really
good.
horribly and then really long.
Yeah.
And again, like I didn't yet know that wasn't my normal. When it turns out my normal is actually like on the really light side. And now I'm working on building my blood, trying to bleed more.
Yeah. It's crazy to think
You know,
about,
it's
isn't it?
crazy. I'm like, oh, I bleed for 3 or 4 days lightly,
Yeah.
like to the point where it's like not enough, which makes sense
Mm.
again that like, oh, right, my system has years of depletion and chronic undereating and undernourishment. I have like a really strong depletion pattern that
Yeah.
I'll fall into. And so that's like what I currently work with now a lot in my body and with my blood is
Mm.
being more robust and more nourished and more
Mm.
structure. But so I knew at that time I had to take the IUD out, but I was so scared, like
Yeah.
so scared. So it took me probably maybe like 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
And it was when I got back from, yeah, it was when I had gotten back from Mexico. I got back to my parents' house and I thought I'll be here a couple weeks and then move on to what's next. And then I got my IUD out and then COVID happened.
Whoa.
Down. And so I had like no job and no plan and no place to live, and then we couldn't go anywhere. And so
Wow.
hindsight, it was a major blessing, but I got locked down at my parents' house for 9 months.
Mm.
And I never would have stayed there that long had circumstances been different. But I'm actually really grateful because it gave me a mandatory period of like, don't take action, just sit in
Mm.
question. And so I just like for those next 9 months, like really, I started to get my cycle back and started to learn my cycle. I ended up working a little bit with the woman who had led that retreat
Mm.
on, yeah, just like how to work with the energy of your cycle. And working with her really opened things up for me. Just like taught me so much about like what it is to be a woman. And I started to feel like, oh, being a woman is the greatest gift I've ever been given. But I barely know what that means yet.
What were you learning about your cycle at the time? Like, what was that opening for you? What was the in?
I think honestly, like that it existed.
So real.
When I think about it, I'm like, I don't even remember specifics that much. I was learning about the phases of the cycle, but there wasn't any one thing.
Mm.
I was really coming at it a lot from the spiritual lens still at that
Yeah.
time of feeling really connected to like this archetypal energy and
Mhm.
feeling just really connected to doing anything that felt natural and not synthetic was like kind of what I was focusing on at that time.
Yeah.
So when I started to just clear out a lot of products from my life, when I started to clear out a lot of just unnecessary stuff, and I got really interested in like essential oils and plants, and it became like the very, very beginning of my herbalism journey, which unknowingly at the time, but
Wow.
where I started to just really feel like, oh, the more that I'm connected to the earth, the more I feel connected to life and the better I feel.
Yeah.
And so I started to practice giving my blood back to the earth,
Mhm.
and that felt really, really powerful, especially to do that at my childhood home.
Oh my gosh. Is that the first
I grew
place
up
you gave your
on.
blood back to the earth?
It is.
Wow, that's really
Yeah.
powerful.
And I went through this process of really discovering myself living in my childhood bedroom.
Yeah.
And that felt really specific.
That is really deep.
And like living with my parents and one of my brothers who like were at the time the people who I was seeing of like, oh, you were the ones who like created all of this harm, you know, and
Mhm.
to be able to be in the environment that raised me while kind of learning a different way, I think is what, I mean, it was hard and I wouldn't recommend it to a friend.
I know.
But in hindsight, I see where it was like a really, really precious gift to be in
Wow.
that specific environment and be like I was like finding all of my old journals from when I was young and like notes that my friends and I wrote to each other in third grade. And I had there was nothing to do during COVID. I had a lot of time and I wasn't working.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of time to just really sit with myself and sit with like what were the last 25 years of my life and how did I get to this
Mm,
point? So
mm.
that journey and like in those months was like really coming off of the 8+ years of birth control and
Wow.
eating again for like what felt like the first time in my life. Because
When
before
did, go
little,
ahead.
yeah, just before I barely bled before.
Yeah, you really hadn't. You'd barely had a relationship with your blood at all. It's kind of beautiful that like you were able to come back to that in this time of slowness and also in your parents' home because the last time you lived there it was like a busy time in your life. So to
Mm-hmm.
like kind of like almost reclaim it like it was your like first experience with bleeding is really cool to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I'm curious, like, for you to obviously, like, now you're living in Colorado, you're like a womb body worker. Like, what, how?
Yeah. I ask myself that question sometimes too.
I mean, I feel like like, it's not as far of a jump from like this yoga version of you as
Yeah.
it is from this software engineering version of you. But yeah, it sounds like maybe this time at your parents like gave you a slow down period for you to then be like, yeah, who do I want to be in this lifetime? Was that kind of the case?
To some extent, it slowed me down a lot, which I'm really grateful for. And then the moment I could leave, I did. Uh,
Yeah.
and that actually started about like a 2.5, 3 year travel period for me. And
Mm,
that's where I really explored who I want to be and I
wow.
want my life to be. And I traveled internationally for that whole time.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I like one-way tickets, like never knew where I was going next. I was very just like full pendulum swing from the software engineer to like go slow, be in the whimsy and like follow the inspiration. And so I started with a trip in Peru and I thought I'd stay there for 6 weeks, but I stayed for 7 months and that just kind of catapulted me into one thing to another. I went from Peru to Malta to Portugal to Sweden to Montenegro to Israel to Costa Rica.
Wow.
A very nonlinear path. I was
Yeah.
just drawn by a lot of different things. I was learning a lot about sexuality and tantra and plant medicine mainly were like kind
Mm,
of the three things that were anchoring me in studies around the world and eventually like Colorado just swept me in. And I remember being in Costa Rica, which is where I was just prior to coming to Colorado, and I was really struggling mentally at this time. And I'd had all these beautiful experiences. I had learned so much. I'd been studying with all of these amazing teachers and done tons of training and retreats and immersions and assisting all of these different events. And I'd cultivated so much knowledge and done so many rituals and kind of played pretty aggressively with the edges of life.
yeah.
Honestly, I got pretty risky with the things
Really.
I was engaging in. I needed to really feel alive in a way that I didn't know prior.
What do you mean by that? Like the edges, what edges?
Like of what is deemed okay to do.
Mm,
I was in some pretty extreme realms of especially like some of like the tantra sexuality work. Like we were doing some weird shit. And I needed to go there. I needed to be like, yeah, we're gonna do some rituals that are really out there.
Yeah.
And that, if we talked about in the normal day-to-day world, we would say like that's not okay to do.
Oh. I
I
mean,
like
yeah, it does feel like that full pendulum swing from like the very muted life you were living to like the fully on.
I really had to explore in an extreme way, which like
Yeah.
knowing myself now, I'm like, oh, it makes a lot of sense. Like it's
Mm,
such a big part of who I am to really need to experience every side. Like I couldn't, no one could tell me this is what it's like and this is where you end up. So just go there. Like
yeah.
I wasn't ready for that. I needed to meet so many parts of myself by crossing over the edge of what I had known. And
Yeah.
that's how I really got to learn a lot about like what is like an edge versus a boundary in my own system.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Or like crossing a lot of my own boundaries, honestly. And then like having compassion and grace for that of like I really got to know myself on a really intimate level during those years because I gave myself a lot of embodied experience in okay, I did this thing, how do I feel on the other side?
Mm.
And so it gave me a lot of self-knowledge that to this day I feel like really, really it's the most precious thing that I have in myself. Like I don't have to question who I am at my core. Like
Mm.
that grounded in me at that time.
Mm.
My external life still was a mess, but internally I cultivated something really real through
Mm.
this like pretty fast and loose exploration of like what is possible in this life and
Mm.
what are we capable of that's so beyond the material.
It's so sweet. And reminds me of, yeah, like just at the beginning talking about that like maiden version and being like, yeah, she was really willing to explore and see things differently. And like, I'm sure
Mhm.
from those experiences you learned, like it helped you learn not only who you are, but like parts of it was like, who am I not? Also.
So much of who am I not?
Yeah.
And that's what Colorado has really landed for me is like when I got here, I was really in the question of like, what is the medicine of rootedness and who am I when I stay?
Mm.
What I was asking myself consciously at that time. And I got to Colorado and then I started to just see the life that I had been living. A lot of it was not me. It was not
Mm.
of me. And then it just became really abundantly clear really, really quickly that the way I had been living in the past years, like while beautiful, was no longer a fit.
Yeah.
Needed something really different. And that's when the nourishment piece and like the physical body nourishment started to come in. Like
Mm.
that was the first time I started to not just prioritize my spiritual nourishment, but my physical nourishment. And that's been the shifts that have actually allowed me to do the work that I do now. And that's when I started working. No, I started working hands-on a little prior. I actually started my practice when I was living in Israel.
Really?
Yeah, which was really unique experience.
Like, what was your first kind of in with that type of work? I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, I came into this work through the lens of the sacred sexuality world.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't pleasure work, but it was more shamanic, I'd say,
Yeah.
the way that we were taught it. And I was working within an organization that did a lot of that type of stuff. And I did their practitioner training where we
Mm.
learned how to have these sessions where we would be working with the whole body, including the genitals, in a way
Mm.
that, again, it wasn't pleasure oriented, but wasn't, it's different than the work I do now. It was less therapeutic, it was more energetic,
Yeah.
like, yeah, of that.
Yeah, which is like
That
it
way.
is sort of the difference between like who you were then and who you are now. I've been really interested seeing this like, you're talking about coming to Colorado and finding home was this like medicine of rootedness and being like, who am I when I'm rooted? And it feels like that's of course like reflected in like how you show up for your work too is like bringing women like deeply rooted into their bodies. And I'm now realizing like as we've gone through this, like I haven't really had you share like exactly what the work you do is. So how would you describe that? Like how would you describe the work you do now?
Yeah, the work I do now is Honey, I'm like, ooh, what are the words that actually want to come
I
through?
know. It's kind of one of the hardest questions.
Yeah. I would say my work now is really based in how do we get to experience as women like our vitality in our bodies and our knowing of ourselves through the lens of our physical being.
Mm,
So my work primarily is hands-on and working with the physical tissue of the body, of kind of having this understanding of who I am physiologically, how my body is structured at this really foundational physiological level reflects the entireness of my being. And through knowing myself at the level of my tissue, I know myself at the level of my soul.
mm,
And that when we create change
mm,
in this tissue-based way, it's like we can't bypass anything when we work with this level of our bodies, you know? I think
mm.
that's why I've loved this work so much, is because I tend to want to bypass the physicality layer. And so, of course, it's like I'm going to do the work that's my best medicine, my most
Oh.
needed medicine. And I found that when we meet the physical layer of the body, we can also meet the mental, the emotional, the spiritual. It's all right here. So
Mm,
it's really deep nervous system work. It's like deep attunement work of like, can I slow down enough to actually feel everything that is present from a complete and total sense of neutrality? Of I have no goal, I have no expectation, and nothing needs to change. Can I
mm,
breathe this breath fully into the essence of who I am in this moment and the sensation I'm currently feeling right now, even if that's numbness, even if that's pain, even if that's like whatever level of discomfort through like maybe I'm having really challenging periods or struggling to get pregnant or whatever it might be. Can I feel the sensation that's underneath that? So I feel
mm,
like a lot of my work is in this unraveling of that everything we experience originates as sensation in our bodies, and then we make meaning out of it.
mm.
We like strip back actually the meaning and come back to the base, the root of can I feel myself as I am?
Wow.
And see like what gets to shift from that place. Because what I found more than anything is that as women, our bodies want to be met with presence. If we think about it in the realm of sexuality, which is such an amazing mirror of like how good it feels when your partner is able to touch you and meet you in a way that's so slow, that's so listening, and it's like nothing needs to change. You're amazing and beautiful exactly as you are. And then we're like, oh, I soften, I melt here.
Mm,
Oh, here is where I can access a level of openness that creates more space for more of myself to reside in my own body and my own being. So that's really what this work feels like to me, is can my body be a space for more of me to reside?
yeah. I felt kind of chills while you were speaking because it's just so amazing to me, like I often say like the mythos that is like each woman's life path. And I feel like when I have women on this podcast, you can really see that very clearly. And in yours, what I see is like you went from like trying to bypass all the sensations of your body, manage all the sensations of your body, like push past it, push away, not feel, keep moving. And now, like your entire life's work, thus for now, right? Who knows what it'll evolve into, but like what you're doing now is being present and actually like not trying to change anything or move past anything, but to just like actually be in the sensation, which is, like you said, like the medicine that you needed. And I think that's so potent and special.
Yeah, 100%. For me, it's been like a journey of learning how to feel again.
Yeah.
That did not always come easy for me. It's like someone who was pretty chronically numbed out. But,
Wow.
like learn to feel my body, to feel the sensation was also like how to learn how to feel alive at the same time. And that's where so much has been able to change for me and like the symptoms of my body and my relationship to my cycle and that's what really opened up for me my relationship to my womanhood, of being able
Mm.
to feel myself as a woman, and that being inherently a nourishing experience. I
Mm,
receive so much nourishment through my own felt sense of myself as a woman and through my own felt sense of being a daughter of the earth that
mm,
like truly, deeply, deeply nourishes my heart, my soul, my womb in a way that nothing else ever touched.
yeah.
So I want that for every woman. I want every woman to know herself and to know her beauty and her vitality and her oneness and like inherent connection to life through
Mm.
her womb, through her womanhood. And where like so much gets to resolve itself when we align our life with that alignment.
What are like some ways that you would recommend for women to like get started with this type of like yeah, connection to themselves?
Yeah, I think one of the first places to start is actually through food,
Yeah.
feeding herself.
We're right back to where we started.
Back to the food. Yeah, like when our bodies are not yet fed enough, we can't feel as much. Like an unfed body is going to be on the outskirts of our it's we're going to exist inherently on our periphery. We're going
Yeah.
to be more in that survival mode. So first is like, oh, can I be like physically fed enough to feel? And then from there, just like a regular practice of bringing your hands to your own body as much as is possible without agenda, or
Yeah.
even just noticing when agenda comes up and just being like, hey, I hear you, I see you, and that's not what we're doing right now.
Mm.
Just seeing what's there, like feeling what's there and slowing it all down. What I've found is that like what's really helpful for me and for so many of my clients is to slow down to a pace where you're only moving as fast as you can feel. And that level of slowness is actually really uncomfortable. So it's like, oh, can we slow down enough to be like, can I feel this sensation here fully of like right now, my hand on my other hand before I move or
Mm.
while I move? Can I be only moving as fast as I can be fully present to the way the sensation is shifting, changing, moving with me? And that level of slowness being what we get to really calibrate to. It's like, it's the pace of the womb.
I love that so much. The pace of the womb. Krista, it's like so cool to hear the way that your like entire life story is informing like how you show up now. I'm like feeling really deeply inspired by you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know you have like a live class coming up, and I want to know if you want to share about that and any other ways that like women can continue to connect with you.
Yeah, for sure. I have a live class called Belly Tending coming up on May 8th that is all about learning how to bring your own hands to your own body in the medicine of self-touch. So, in just what I talked about, it's like, how do we really tend to our bodies with our hands and beyond in a day-to-day way that actually gets to support our connection to ourselves and create change in some of these symptoms that maybe feel pretty uncomfy. And I know the belly being such a huge one of those for dare I say, every woman I've ever met at some point in her life. So yeah, that's coming up on May 8th. And otherwise, I have a hands-on work that I do around womb and pelvic care with women here in Lyons, Colorado, in-person sessions and multi-day long immersions for women who aren't local, and a virtual womb-led women mentorship for women who are wanting to really dive into that essence of their womanhood and in the meantime, yes, resolve deeper pieces around pain and whatever they're experiencing and their challenges to feeling their full aliveness and connection to what it means to be a woman in your own unique way because it's going to look and feel so different for each of us.
Mm.
You can find all of that on my website, which is just my name, KristaMcGuigan.com, and my Instagram. So it's just my name. I'm sure
Oh,
Natalie will link those for us here.
all links in the show notes always.
Yeah.
Krista, this has been so sweet. The last thing I always like to ask is if there's just like a piece of womb wisdom that you'd like to leave the women listening. Not like you haven't already dropped tons of that, but if there's one little piece you'd like to end with, I'd love to hear what that is.
Right now, what's really feeling present in my womb is just to trust yourself.
Mm.
Like really, really deeply trust yourself, trust your knowing, trust it when it doesn't make sense, maybe especially when it doesn't make sense. And when we like take aligned action with some of these little inklings and see what changes, see what happens, and keep following that thread of what does your life begin to look like when you move from the place of self-trust rather than self-doubt.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you so much for being here. This has been really special.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was so good to get to chat about all these things with you.
Thank you for tuning in to the wisdom of the womb today. It's truly such an honor to bring these stories and teachings forward to you, and it would mean so much to me if you'd rate and review this podcast so that it can reach more women. If you're looking for deeper support, you can always find the link to join our online community, the Cyclical Living Circle with the best women in the world, in the show notes, and you'll also find the links to book one-on-one virtual sessions for your specific needs, as well as any workshops or courses I'm currently offering. Plus, you can follow me on Instagram, and I love to connect with you all there. All right, see you next week.